Facebook Live. Facebook Live. Let's go.
You look so good to me. Up and out your way, did you look for me? I don't know where I'm going, don't know what I'm doing. If I really wanna see you lonely like I'm lonely, pray for me too. I say what we had was best with the
Facebook Live. Let's come on in. Come on in.
I'm on my phone all alone, guess I earned tickets. You ain't fucking with me, and I ain't fucking with you.
Hold on. I don't own the copyrights to this music. Facebook to the Facebook security team.
We had was best with the hurtless. Apologize so many times, always worthless. I'm on my phone all alone, guess I earned tickets. You ain't fucking with me, and I ain't fucking with you. I've been drinking.
You gotta let Facebook know.
I've been drinking and smoking long and steady. You left the nipping on the left side of my bed. Now I go to sleep, so I sleep tight. Wonder when you be back. Heard you been out and about. Lisa called, said she saw you out with somebody else. Maybe keep it to myself. Maybe keep it to myself.
We're gonna let this ride out.
No, I wasn't the best man. Was you right now? You using me less than your left hand. Stayed the night, now we solving my problems, we sexing. Now you happy you're not with me, but the next man. You was my best friend, felt it was destined. There's nobody touching me, how you touch me with them hands. Rubbing on my body when I'm so stressing. Stressing with the best medicine. Now I need a second hand, yeah. Yeah, yeah. You look so good.
Shout out to Shade Crew for the banger. It's called Pray For Me.
Pray for me too.
Facebook Live, what's going on? It's the first time. Facebook Live. I want to thank everybody for joining into the cleanup cast. Follow the boy, Mr. Vic Jones on Instagram, Mr. _ Vic Jones on Twitter. We gonna talk about it today. Waiting for the comments. Come on in. All the viewers, come on in. Let's talk about it. First on the agenda, Mr. August Alsina and Jada Pinkett. Will Smith, man, you got some splaining to do, man. Seriously. So I'm watching a news outlet today, and I see August Alsina. He has a interview with Angela Yee from the Breakfast Club, and he's talking about a different set of things. During this interview, August Alsina mentioned something very interesting. He talked about how, well, indirectly, he mentioned that he had some type of romantic relationship with Jada Pinkett Smith. Now, those of you that's been following this couple along with August Alsina and the family, back then they was saying that August Alsina was more so like a I wouldn't say a stepson, but more so like an adopted son, friend of the family, and they did a real good job with hiding what August Alsina was. And I stated in this upcoming interview that he had with Angela Yee, he mentioned that he was, romantically dealing with Jada Pinkett Smith, and he mentioned that he got permission from Will Smith to, I guess, romantically be involved with Jada Pinkett. Now, I need the fellas to chime in on this. Now, according to August Alsina, he talked about the life partnership that Jada Pinkett and Will Smith currently has. This life partnership is, I guess, them staying together, keeping the family together, but just no romantic there's no type of romantic intimacy. So I guess Will Smith allowed August Alsina to come in and substitute as a concubine. Well, Will Smith, let me tell you something. One of these days, as if I'm ever so fortunate to become a married man, that's not happening. We not doing that. At the end of the day, you know, marriage is something sacred. You know, vows are something sacred. At the end of the day, there's certain things within this marriage that we just can't we can't violate. You know what I'm saying? It's more so like for better or for worse, through thick and thin, for rich or poor. It's just certain things, certain obligations that you have to stick towards, regardless of how hard and how rocky a situation is. But you know, all the comments, man. I would like to know what y'all think. Come on, let's go. Thoughts of Jada Pinkett and August Alsina's relationship. Come on in, comment. Let's go. Once again, thank everybody for joining into the cleanup cast, where we focus on objectively speaking. You know, the purpose of being objective is to not, go for one side. You listen to both sides, and then you make your assumptions off of that, off of both sides, and then you go from there. But I know me personally, I can't do it. I can't allow another man, regardless of if it's just a friend of the family or whatever, just to come in and just like take in that spiritual role, because that's what it is to me. At the end of the day, when you are being intimate with somebody, that's being spiritual. And as a man, as a married man, we not allowing nobody to come in and take that instrumental part of marriage. Which this kind of leads into my next segue of you know boundaries. At the end of the day, does anybody know where August Alsina came from? Where did August Alsina come from? Anybody? Where did August Alsina come from? How did they meet August Alsina? I remember he had a single. He from the South. How did that intertwine with the Smith family? Did it start out as a friendship? Did Jada DM him? Did he DM Jada? What? How did that start? Which goes into boundaries. Let's talk about boundaries. At the end of the day, well, let me ask you guys a question. When you guys are in a committed relationship or you're dealing with somebody, is it okay for the man or a woman to have man or woman friends? So if is it okay for a woman to have male friends when you're dealing with somebody? And is it okay for a man to have female friends when you're in a committed relationship? Let's talk about that. What are some boundaries that need to be? What are some boundaries that need to be talked about when you're building a friendship with somebody, knowing that you have a relationship at home? Smith family lifestyle dynamic is complicated. Leave the door open. People get curious about what's in the house. Walk in. I agree. Definitely agree about that. 100%. 100%. What are some boundaries? As stated, what are some boundaries that one should set when having a friendship with the opposite sex, and you're in a relationship? There should be things that, in my opinion, there should be things that is mentioned right up front. Certain things like, I mean, just communication, transparency. There's always you should always have the things up front. Absolutely. So, is it easier for a female to be friends with a guy, or is it easier for a male in a relationship to be friends with another woman? Oh yeah, we going there today. Let's go. Let's go. Come on, let's go. See all the viewers. Come on, come on. Let's go. Let's go. What is okay in a friendship when you're in a relationship? What is okay and what is not okay? Talking on the phone, is that okay? Talking on the phone, is that okay? What about time shifts? You know, at the end of the day, time, things that you talk about, things that you do as a friend, is there certain things that, you can't get into and certain things that you can get into? Should your spouse know? Should your spouse know that you have a male friend, or should your spouse know that you have a female friend? Maybe that transparency with your partner, going over it with your partner, saying, "Listen, asking permission. Is it okay for me to have female friends? Is it okay for me to have? Is it okay for me to have male friends? Should we ask for permission if you're in a committed relationship? Will it make things easier? Will it make things harder? How informed should you keep your partner about the friendship that you have, or is it not that big of a deal? Should you go over with your partner things to talk about and things not to talk about? What are some things that we talk about that might not necessarily fly with your partner? What are some things that you might not necessarily talk about that will fly with your partner? Anything, whatever. I say this is all inspired off of how did August Alsina and Jada Pinkett, how did that happen? How did they get close enough to become romantically involved with each other? Are we talking about relationship issues? Is that okay? Is that okay when you to have a conversation about relationships when you are in a relationship? Is it not okay? What are certain things that can come into play when you are having these conversations with your friend that's of opposite sex? You never know. Feelings get involved as well. You got to be careful. Obviously, with this situation that's going on with Jada and August Alsina, there was something that happened that maybe August Alsina had talked to Jada about that kind of got maybe Jada Pinkett emotionally involved. Or maybe there was a conversation with Jada Pinkett and she had a conversation with August that might have got him romantically involved to the point where one became maybe interested in the other based off conversation. Is that normal? And if it gets to a point where your friend is starting to become, I guess, interested in you, and it start going past certain things, where do you cut it off at? Do you continue that relationship, or do you say, you know what? At the end of the day, we just conversating, we conversing as friends. I can't go there with you because I'm in this relationship. How does that work? How does that work? How do you bring that to Will Smith? And how does Will Smith accept that? Is there an understanding between Will and Jada to the point where it's like, okay, Will Smith sort of knows what's up, so Jada's bringing August to Will Smith for them to have a conversation? Feel free to comment, y'all. Feel free to comment. What are we talking about? What are some things that you talk about? And as stated, should your spouse be involved with conversations like that when you talk about uh emotional conversations? Should your spouse be involved? Boundaries. Let's talk about boundaries. Sometimes, some people think it's okay to have certain conversations like that, and it's not necessarily nothing. It's not necessarily nothing to talk about with your spouse if you guys are friends. But you know what? At the end of the day, where everything comes in at, you should definitely make your spouse aware that there is a friendship that you have. Is this the reason why Will Smith was open to it? Mind you, they already agreed to having a life partnership with no intimacy. So maybe was this something that Jada Pinkett already knew? Listen, I know Will Smith is going to be okay with this, so I'm going to bring August here to talk with Will Smith and get Will Smith's okay. If they're in a life partnership, does Jada Pinkett needs Will Smith permission if they're not romantically involved? What if they are romantically involved? What should you be able to cut off boundaries, or should you still let your spouse know about the boundaries that you set with your friend, your newfound friendship? Sometimes it's not a newfound friendship. Maybe it'd be friendship from years and years ago. But at the end of the day, it seems as though, when you do have a friendship with the opposite sex and you're in a relationship based off of, you know, experiencing friends go through it, past experiences, maybe it's time to be more open with, the friendships that you have with the opposite sex with your spouse to make sure that your spouse is okay with that. If you guys are on one accord. I've witnessed people in the past say, listen, I necessarily don't have to bring this conversation back to my spouse because my spouse trusts me enough to know that I won't do anything to disrespect my spouse, or I won't do anything to violate the trust that I have with my spouse. People think like that. Then you got people that just blue in the face, that just don't see certain things that happen. And it seems like in the past, or well, it seems like in the past, things may get worse. Especially when you start, you know, touching certain topics or touching certain subjects with a person that they might start emotionally getting involved with you, and you might not know that. Do you cut it off right there? Do you automatically bring it to the spouse and say, listen, this is what's happening and I want your opinion about this? or should you handle it on your own to keep your spouse happy and just know like, yo, we got boundaries and set. Do we know if Will Smith knew everything that they talked about? Should they know everything that they talk about? Nobody's asking these questions. These questions need to be asked. These questions need to be asked because then you have situations like the August Alsina situation and Jada Pinkett. At the end of the day, Jada Pinkett and Will Smith has a family. They have a son, daughter. I don't know if they have another kid, but like they have a family. How does that affect the family? How does August Alsina being there as the romantic factor, how does that affect the family? How does what kind of lessons are you teaching the kids? What are you saying to the kids? Because there's going to be questions. And you know, these kids, Willow, Jaden, they have questions. They have questions and they're getting older. And they not August Alsina is not related to them. He's not related to them. He has no obligation to the kids. So like are we causing confusion to these kids? Are we saying it's okay to uh be married and have somebody else in the house? Like what are we teaching these kids? It's about passing it on to the next generation. And so I'm sure Willow and Jaden are looking at this like, okay, so I'm assuming that this is okay. Boundaries. Boundaries. And then you got to make sure that you are talking to somebody, you are building a friendship with somebody that's going to be honest. You know, there are situations where you have a friendship with somebody and you're upfront about everything. You let the man or the woman that you're in a friendship with know, listen, I have a home I have a home, I have a family. And we're talking now, and we're talking in a sense where like, yo, I have a family, I'm romantically involved with my significant other, I have kids and all that stuff like that. You let that up, you pull that out right then and there, right then and there. But realize when you do pull that out, you got to start looking for ulterior motives now, because maybe you start getting into deep with certain conversations, and then you know what, that friendship that you has, this other party might start forming an attraction that necessarily don't have nothing to do with you. What do you do once you start seeing things going left? Do you cut it off? Do you cut it off right then and there? Do you let your spouse know, yo, listen, I don't like the way this is feeling right here, just to kind of cover just to kind of cover you? Back then people wouldn't do that. Back then people wouldn't do that, but it looks like, these should be steps that people should start taking. Once you start building a friendship with somebody and they start crossing certain boundaries, yo, maybe it's time to just cut that friendship off, because you obviously are showing me that you don't have respect for what I got going home. Even though we friends, there's certain boundaries that you cross in that, you know what, this probably can't go on. It can't go on. Maybe you should start letting your spouse know about the uncomfortable conversations that you should feel. Maybe that should be a sense from here on out. Maybe you know what? Some people just might be scared. Some people might be fearful of what the spouse might say. Let's say if Jada Pinkett and Will Smith were romantically involved, maybe Jada Pinkett would have probably got scared to bring it to Will Smith. because of maybe Will Smith might throwing out allegations, alleged things, you know, certain things that you just gotta like nip in the bud. And that's like causing a shock too, because once you nip certain things in the butt, yo, people might get overwhelmed. People might get overwhelmed with that. People may get overwhelmed. Let's say if Jada Pinkett was like, yo, listen, you we not doing this no more because this is like violent into my relationship that I have with my family. You never know. August Alsina, based off of his past, August Alsina might snap. He might snap because he hasn't yet conquered whatever he got going on mentally. He's still going through his trauma. He going through his trauma, and then once Jada Pinkett start talking to him about his trauma and helping him out through his trauma, he start getting attracted to Jada Pinkett, and Jada Pinkett like, dude, fall back. This is not. We just friends. And August Alsina might have some type of shell shock. He might say, well, nah. Now I'm attracted to you based off of you understanding what I'm going through. And you know what? At the end of the day, if I can't have you, then I'm gonna do everything in my power to mess up what you got going on at home because I'm not getting my way. You got people out there like that. There's people out there like that. Not in this case. In this case, more so, it seems like Will Smith was cool with it. Jada Pinkett was cool with it. August Alsina was cool with it. But it's just certain things that you need to be mindful of when you are building relationships or building friendships with people, because you might go into something innocent, but that person, you don't know what that person has, what type of motive this person may have. We really don't know. What say you? Do you even just alleviate just having friends of opposite sex when you're in a relationship, just to like save yourself the headache? Maybe that might be the best course of action. That might be the best course of action, to not even have a friendship with somebody that's of the opposite sex because they are of the opposite sex. Now, I'm not saying that it's a problem with that, but you know what? Some people don't know boundaries. They don't know boundaries. Just something to think about. Cut it off right then and there. Let your spouse know. Let your spouse know. You're in the clear. You are in the clear. And sometimes people are scared to let their spouse know when somebody has violated something, because you know what? They don't want to hurt their spouse's feelings. They don't want their spouses thinking, okay, you're entertaining it, so you got something to do with that. When that necessarily might not be the case. It might not be the case. Sometimes people don't say nothing because they just scared of what their spouse may say. Sometimes you got spouse that'll flip out. Sometimes you got spouse that'll be understanding. But you know, you got to pick and choose what situations you're gonna get yourself involved with. You got to be able to catch. You have to be able to catch certain things in the beginning, either nip it in the butt or end it right then and there. Because if you let certain things slide, then you never know. This person may be testing you in a sense. It is tough for a person to have a friendship with opposite, just like you said, man. Only across it. Absolutely, Rob. That's absolutely correct. Sometimes boundaries are crossed, and the person might not know about it. The person might not know about it. You may be thinking innocent, but the person that you're in a friendship with is some in some type of way building up an attraction. Do we catch it? Do we catch it right then and there and say, you know what? Do we? How many chances do we give them? How many slip ups do we give them? After the first slip up, do you let your spouse know? Or is the first slip up sort of like, all right, listen, relax, relax? Or is one too much? Is one too much? Simple as that. One may be too much. One may be enough to say, you know what, I'm gonna have a conversation with my spouse about this. And some spouses may be like, you know what, I can handle this. I don't need to cause stress. You know, my family is going through whatever they're going through. We all in this together. So it's certain things I can nip in the butt myself. But at the end of the day, based off of August Alsina's past, he's dealt with trauma. I mean, growing up in certain family environments that wasn't necessarily well for him. I think he mentioned something about going in and out of uh transitional housings as a child. It's just so many things, so many traumas that you build. You know, they may listen. At the end of the day, they may not have came across somebody like you that's actually there to really like just be a friend. That can be overwhelming to somebody as well. Maybe they so used to building a relationship with somebody, building a friendship with somebody, and then that person coming out and asking for something. They might not they might not necessarily have came across somebody like you as a woman or you as a man that's actually there genuinely caring about them. And maybe that's how the tension start building. Maybe this is where the fatal attraction start coming in at. But you being the friend, the comforting friend, you got to know when this tension is start building. You got to figure out certain ways. You got to figure out certain ways to kind of like ease your way out of situation without triggering something. You got to figure out ways. Maybe you need to start having more. Maybe you need to have that open communication with your spouse and letting them know. Listen, I don't know. I need your advice. Don't necessarily go in head first. Kind of like subliminally talk about it. Say, listen, I need your advice about a certain situation. Maybe your spouse can give you good advice. Maybe your spouse can confirm something that you already thought, but the fact that you're keeping them in a loop is kind of like protecting not only you but protecting your spouse and your family. At the end of the day, I am not here to judge a person's household. What Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith have going on, that's them. But the purpose of this vodcast is to objectively speak. Look at both sides and see, all right, are boundaries being crossed? Is it okay? Is it not okay? How do you handle that? Do you handle it yourself or do you bring it to your spouse? There's just so many things that you need to take into consideration when you are building a friendship with somebody of the opposite sex. You got to be careful because they might not necessarily have came across somebody like you that's genuinely there to like be a friend. People might take that and just might fall in love off the rip just like that. My opinion, based off of experiences with people that have been in this situation, you know what? Protect yourself. Bring it to your spouse anyway. Because when you don't, then you leave more room for questioning from your spouse. Like, yo, how long has this been going on? These conversations don't look friendly. These conversations that I'm reading or I'm listening to, these don't seem too friendly. Maybe you start, letting your partner know about things like that just to kind of keep yourself in the clear. Because if you don't keep yourself in the clear, now both of y'all look like y'all in the wrong. And you never know, August Alsina or somebody of the same caliber might do stuff too because you rejected them or put certain boundaries. Now it's more so like, all right, so you're gonna sit here, you're gonna get to know me, and then like you just gonna like do certain things. Nah. Now I'm out for war. I'm not saying that there's a lot of people out there, but there are people out there that'll be out for blood just to mess something up because they can't have things their way. These are things that you should think about when you're getting into a friendship with somebody of the opposite sex. Simple as that. Be mindful. Try not to be blue in the face. Be mindful about everything. Ask questions. Ask important questions. Ask important questions. One of my big proponents when I'm building a friendship with men or women, I ask questions so I know what I'm dealing with or what I may potentially be dealing with in the long run. Ask questions. You're not asking questions. Well, you are asking questions because you want to get to learn who these people are, but you're asking questions for your protection. You need to, especially with the way society is going nowadays. You got to ask questions. You have to ask questions. You have to ask questions because when you ask questions, all right, there's opportunities where you can nip certain things in the butt, or there's certain questions that you may ask, you might get answers to, and you might say, okay, that's a red flag. I could just cut it off right then and there. But always be mindful of the type of reaction you may get. Now, if you're as stated, if you're building a friendship with somebody and you feel like you're gonna get a negative reaction when you set boundaries, maybe you should make it your duty to let your spouse know. Just just to be on a safer side. Because maybe your spouse can see, okay, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to destroy something, but you can't because our communication is right then and there. Our communication is top notch. So I see the moves that you're doing, but we're not gonna have that because he or she is open with me about certain things. And I say that you got certain people that say, listen, I'm gonna handle it on my own. Sometimes that might not be good. Sometimes that might not be it might not be good because when a person do start going crazy and your spouse find out about it like surprisingly, now you in trouble. You in trouble. Your home is at risk your home is at risk of being on fire because you didn't open your mouth. These are certain things that we need to start thinking about, people. I say that I'm not here to uh be a judge. I'm here to objectively speak on certain things, specifically in this situation. You always need to set boundaries because at the end of the day, if there's no boundary set, it ain't gonna do nothing but hurt. It's gonna end up hurting the people you care about, or even hurting you, or even hurting the person that you're building a bond with. Set the boundaries up front and start prompting people about the boundaries you set as a friendship is built. Start prompting people. And once you see somebody just going past the prompts, now it's time to bring your spouse into it. Have the conversation with your spouse and get advice from your spouse and saying, listen, should I continue to build this friendship or should I just bounce and like get up out of there? I don't know, people. Just leave your comments in the comment section. Leave your comments in the comment section. I definitely want to thank y'all for tuning in. All 6 or 7 people that came in. Leave your comments in the comment section.